大家好，我是燕燕。我从小生长在一个富裕的环境，所以从小无忧无虑。我也不知道什么叫做理财，我也觉得我不需要去做一些什么理财。可是当我长大念完书，大学毕业之后，我发现我没有目标，那我只能去上班，而且呢，我只能把钱存在银行里面。
大学を出てからずっとサラリーマンをやってました。もうサラリーマン一本ですね、収入源が一つしかないということで、定年を間近に控え、このままでは将来に不安があるということで投資にはいろいろ手を出しました。
我就係一個普通嘅大學生嘅。當我畢業之後，我就發覺我係需要一個投資嘅計劃啦，去好好咁樣去處理我嘅人生同埋我嘅理財計劃嘅。
後來呢，當我遇到了結婚對象，我的對象他是學財經的，而且他在銀行上班。我想說，哇，我的人生有希望了。於是我把我的積蓄通通交給他，讓他去做理財，去做投資。可是沒有想到，過了幾年之後，我發現他做的是投機，而不是投資。於是我們的積蓄都沒有了。又加上呢2個女兒的出生，我從一個本來很富裕的生活變成了月光族，也就是每個月薪水花光光。
バイナリーオプションであるとか FX であるとか、日々値段を追ってもう徹夜したこともありますけど、ほとんど変わらないというか儲からない。もうことこと疲れて、もうどうしよう、もう投資はダメかなと思った時に出会ったのが株式投資でした。で、株式投資でもいろいろやり方があると思うんですけど、長期的なやり方があるということで、それにすごい興味を惹かれました。
所以咧，我就特登去參加咗 Katon 老師嗰個嘅VIA 嘅 course。咁我投資之前就真係完全係冇接觸過任何投資嘅，最多都只係喺大學度有上過關於可能係 finance 啊，又或者 account 嘅知識嘅啫。咁就完全冇投資嗰方面嘅任何知識。咁所以我就最後尾決定咗去試下 Katon 老師個嘅 course， 咁然之後睇下會唔會對我嘅生活有啲咩嘅改變咯。
我每天過着這樣的生活，我真的看不到未來。但是呢，在去年我接觸了價值投資之後，我發現原來可以透過學習，讓我們自己翻轉自己的未來，讓我們有機會可以獲得財務自由。
バリュー投資という、長期的な投資をやることによって日々株価を追わなくていい、ゆったりした気分で、長期的に見ていくということで、またリスクを抑えてやるというところで、年も年なんでリスクっていうのはやっぱり避けたいというところもあるんで、そういったのもうまく、自分の希望も叶えられる投資というので、それを実践して、やっているんで、結構ゆったりと精神的にもゆったりとした気持ちで、取り組んでおります。
我今年已經52歲了，而且我有2個女兒，我現在也是單親。我相信我可以做得到，你還有什麼做不到的呢？那讓我們一起加油學習吧。
我本身係冇任何嘅投資嘅知識，亦都冇任何投資嘅經驗，我亦都冇咁多嘅時間可以做其他嘅 part time 同埋 freelance。咁呢啲嘅因素都冇影響到我去學習投資。咁你依家仲喺度等啲咩啊？
我在 VIA 學習投資。
私は VIA の卒業生です。
我係從 VIA 嚟嘅。
私はケイデンのクラス卒業生です。
我是從 VIA 學習的。
咁你呢？
那你呢？
那你呢？
Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope that you can hear me. If you can hear me, can you type 1 in the chat so that I will know that my voice, the volume is good and then you can hear me nicely. Okay, thank you for all your responses and a very good morning to every one of you. Welcome to join our Autopilot Investing event for today. And I appreciate that every one of you in the room. There's about like 83 of you come and join us in this beautiful Saturday morning, even though there's a bit of hazy from our good neighbor, but then it's still a beautiful morning because we can still see the sun. Okay, so today we will learn more about how you can invest your wealth with minimal action. There is still action required, but then it's minimal action because we call this autopilot. That means we expect all this to run automatically, right? Okay, so earlier on, you've seen the video that was being done in-house by our in-house production team. So all credits goes to them, where they took a video from various participants from different countries, like in Taiwan, Hong Kong, Japan. Each of them, they have actually benefited from this value investing program that is being organized by Value Investing Academy, which is the event that you are joining in today. So without further ado, let me get started so that we'll be able to end on time. So today's session will be about 3 hours from 10 to 1. But then if we manage to end on time, that'll be great. If earlier, it'll be better so that you have more time for your family, okay? So give me a moment to share my slides. Okay. Okay, so are you able to see the slides right now? So you can type in maybe 2 to let me know that the slides is working fine. Okay, thank you for all your responses. So this is our event for today. So earlier on, you've seen this video. And then if you are interested to learn more about like what we do or what other contents that we have, you can come to our YouTube channel where we have a lot of different contents available, like lessons from famous value investors. And this deep dive series is actually some of the contents that we produce to share more about how you can evaluate a company using value investing methodology. So how you can get there is that you can come to this Value Investing Academy channel, and then or you can scan on this QR code to access to this platform, and then click on subscribe so that whenever there's any new content available, then you will be notified. So I will leave here about like 1 or 2 minutes so that you can scan the QR code and then access to our Value Investing Academy YouTube channel. Okay, so I'll move on. Okay, so here, this is something that all of us are very concerned about, especially inflation. When COVID just ended, then we saw that inflation has been skyrocketing as high as possible, like about like 5%. But right now, the latest figures in August is now about 3.4%. But here it mentions core inflation. So is there any difference between an inflation and a core inflation? Later, we'll share more about what is the difference between these two. So here it mentions that right now in August, it has been falling to 3.4%. And it was a drop about 0.4% since July. So it looks like a good news. But then what contributes to this drop in the inflation? This is something that we should deep dive further. It's not just looking at the numbers, because when we saw that the inflation is like 3.4%, but every day when we go for grocery to buy food, do we feel that the price is dropping? That's the questions that we have to ask ourselves, even though the news looks nice that, oh, right now we dropped to 3.4%, but then why does my expenses is still like maintaining or maybe even increasing? Next year, the government also announced that the electricity and water bills are increasing as well. So we'll find out more. Okay, so here is Kaden, which is our VIA founder. So you can see how happy he is, cuddled up in very thick clothing. So he must be somewhere cold. So why are we showing this is because all of us, we have a job, but what is the reason why we want to have a job is because we wanted to earn the salary. But then another in-depth question that we should ask ourselves that why do we want to earn a salary, or why do we even want to take up a job? It's because that we wanted to maintain our lifestyle. Like every day when we go to work, we want to earn a salary to pay for our expenses, pay for our meals, or even pay for the education for our children. But then earlier on, we saw that the core inflation is about 3.4%. Then one way we can actually beat the inflation is that we can put a portion of our salary into CPF. So I believe most of us here are either Singaporeans or PRs. Every month, about 20% of our salary will go to CPF. We can't even touch that 20%, then it's already contributed into CPF. So about 2.5% is to OA, 4.04% is an SA. So later, our next speaker, Jian Da, will share more about how we can actually maximize our CPF. So actually, I'm looking forward to it because really not many people know how to maximize. I just know that I just contribute about 20% of my salary into CPF and then let it grow. And then sometimes by the end of the year, government can also like top up a bit for us, like kind of like a interest for us. And other than putting a part of our salary into CPF, we can also consider put our extra money, like something like in excess after we have paid all our bills, our expenses. Sometimes we have money in excess. Then we might put it inside the banks, and we can see that last time, Singapore banks, if you only put it in normal savings account, the interest is about 0.05%, which is really not a lot. But then during COVID, a lot of banks, they are like hiking up their interest. Like they offer some savings account or some other different credit checking accounts that the interest can go as high as 7.88%. Is very, very attractive in my opinion, because you see core inflation is 3.4. Then this one is 7.88%. So this one can really like beat the inflation. However, if you look into the terms and conditions, you'll realize that in order to achieve this, there's a lot of things you need to do, a lot of criteria you need to fulfill. So later we'll also find out more about what other banks have different types of interest available. Then, of course, another way is that we can also invest our money into MAS bond, Money Authority of Singapore, where they offer 3 types of bonds. One is SGS, Singapore Government Securities Bonds, Singapore Saving Bonds, and also T-bills, Treasury bills. So you can see the rates here is from 1.875% per annum to 3.32%. And T-bills, the latest cut-off yield is about 3.87%. So all of this looks interesting, but what does this percentage actually mean? So for today's session, I'll be talking more about Singapore saving bonds. At the same time, I will touch a bit about SGS bonds and also T-bills as well. So you can see here, all of these rates, it looks like it kind of like can beat the core inflation, but then what's the catch? Yeah. So today, that's the reason why most of you join here, is to find out that how I can invest automatically at the same time have a chance to beat the inflation. Okay, so now one of the questions that you might wanted to ask yourself is that, what kind of lifestyle do we want? So here, you can see here, this is a very beautiful picture of a country. There is like snowy mountains, lakes, and imagine that you can sit here with your loved ones, drinking a cup of coffee, enjoying the view, have a peace of mind and relaxing. Is this the kind of lifestyle that you really want? Or maybe some other lifestyle, like going for some excitement, or maybe going for exploration to see some exotic places or some interesting places like cultural exchanges. So what kind of lifestyle do we really want? So this is something that we should ask ourselves. Like for example, this photo actually comes from Caden. He mentions that when he retires, he wants to sit here, drink a cup of coffee, look at the view, have his time in a relaxed mode and enjoy his time. Yeah. So this is why he put up this picture to let us think about, like, instead of just working 9 to 5 for the 5 to 6 days per week, why are we working so hard? Like, what are the lifestyle that we actually really want? So what is the outcome that we wanted to have from working? So this is something that you can ponder while you're hearing the sharing for today. Okay, so here at VIA, actually we have shared some of the ideas, like how we can build your portfolio, like how we can manage your money, like instead of putting a whole chunk of money inside the bank, how you can actually grow your wealth. So one way is that there's cash and bonds. There's also CPF, and also passive investing. That means you invest in exchange traded funds, and also some mutual funds, and of course, stocks in the stock market. So for today, we'll be sharing in 3 parts, which is cash and bonds, how you can invest, or like let your money that is not using, that means your rainy day funds, how you can actually let them grow instead of letting inflation eat into it. And then Jie will be sharing more about how we can maximize the CPF. And then finally, our third speaker will share more about how we can do a passive investing. That means you just kickstart. That means you just apply for it, and then every month you can put in money to let it grow. So there's minimal action other than clicking on to starting the applications. Okay, so these are the 3 segments that we'll be covering for today. Okay, so these are the speakers for today. So for me, I'll be starting off with the first session, and then followed by Jian Da will be sharing more about CPF, and then George will be sharing about ETFs. Okay, so for me, I'll be sharing more about Singapore saving bonds. So here it mentions that it offers a rate that is much more better than the traditional banks. So earlier on, you've seen that currently the core inflation is 3.4, but then how much is the Singapore saving bonds offered this month? Because every month, because Singapore saving bonds is offered every month. So every month they have different rates. So what are the rates for this month? And also the most important thing that is that we wanted to put our money to grow it, but at the same time, have the opportunity to get it back. So this one is 100% capital protection by Singapore government. So you don't have to worry that if I put my money with a bank, I put money with a bond or with some funds, but then the company cannot make it. They just close shop. They announce bankruptcy. So then how are we going to get back our capital? That is one of our worst nightmares. So we don't want that to happen. But in Singapore saving bonds, they are actually 100% guaranteed by the Singapore government. So with that, I'll kickstart with my sharing for today. So give me a moment to change the slides. Okay, so here is our session for the Singapore saving bonds. Let me move this aside. Okay, so before that, for every event about investing, we will put up a disclaimer. It's because this one is just solely to illustrate that how we can use some value investing methodologies to analyze certain companies. But for today, we are mostly about passive investing. So under no circumstances does any of the information provided in this session is a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any investments, like for example, the bonds or CPF, or later during George's session is about ETFs. So because we do not take into account of the individual characteristics, profile, and or risk appetite of a given investor. So for today's session is merely sharing information to let you know that, oh, I can do this, but then further information will be required. So you may have to do further due diligence to see that whether this opportunity suits you or not. So in no event shall VIA or any author for this session be liable to any viewers, guests, or third party for any damages of any kind arising out of the use of any content shared here. So neither Mind Kinesis Investments, Value Investing Academy, nor the authors of the case of this session are operated or affiliated by any broker, dealer, or licensed financial advisor. Okay, so with that, with the boring part done, let's get into the fun part. Okay, so now let's have a quick view on what are the bonds offered by MAS. Okay, so what bonds does MAS issue? Okay, so for individuals, MAS actually offered 3 types of bonds. However, they also offer bonds to the institutions. That means the financial institutions like the big banks, some of the mutual fund house as such. So for us, we only focus on these 3 types. So these are the 3 types that is being offered by MAS, which is the Singapore saving bonds, the Singapore government securities bonds, and also the T-bills. So why should we consider these MAS bonds? It's because that it is fully backed by the government. So it has a AAA rating. And then they also earn a regular interest. And it's another way you can diversify your investment, because imagine that you have a pile of money, you wouldn't want to lock it up in fixed deposits or maybe just a mere interest of the savings account. So maybe you want to find another way to better grow your money. So maybe this one could be another instrument you can consider. And also, the interest income that you earn from these bonds are actually tax exempt. So that is another good thing. However, for Singapore saving bonds, it is non-transferable. So that means when you purchase the Singapore saving bonds, you cannot say that I wanted to transfer it to my children or transfer it to my spouse or even sell it off on the SGX exchange. It's not allowed. However, for Singapore saving bonds, it is redeemable. That means you can take back the money anytime that you want. Okay, so now let's look at the Singapore saving bonds. So before that, let me play a short video about the Singapore saving bonds to let you have a quick glance on what is actually a Singapore saving bonds. Sorry. Okay.
Have you heard about bonds? Nope, we're not talking about him. Although the bonds we're talking about help shake up your investment options. Say hello to Singapore Savings Bonds. It is a safe and flexible way to save for the long term. Safe because they're backed by the Singapore government. And flexible because you can exit in any month without penalties. It's great when you need cash for rainy days, or if you're saving for retirement, or that family holiday you have always planned for. The best part is your interest grows over time. So flex your money. Grow your savings with Singapore Savings Bonds. Find out more about SSB now.
Okay, welcome back. So earlier on, the video was actually produced by MAS, which is very short and succinct to tell us the critical information about Singapore saving bonds. But for today, we'll be further deep dive to find out more details about Singapore saving bonds. So first off, what is actually a Singapore saving bonds? It is actually a safe and also a flexible bond for individual investors to invest in. So usually the maximum years that you can invest this bond is about 10 years. However, you can redeem it at any month without any penalty, because usually if let's say we put inside a fixed deposit, they will have a certain duration for the fixed deposit. But then if let's say suddenly you need the money to do something, or maybe you need it for some emergency, when you wanted to take out the money from the fixed deposits, usually they will impose a certain amount of penalty. But for Singapore saving bonds, there will be no penalty for it if you wanted to redeem early. And also the interest actually increase over time, which is known as a step-up interest. So here, this is the latest return for the Singapore saving bonds for this month. So you can see that it's about 3.32%, but it's in average return over 10 years. So you can see the fine print here. The first year is 3.21%, then it slowly increases until 3.63% on the 10th year. So that means the longer you save your money with Singapore saving bonds, the higher the interest it goes. So if you're interested in, do apply it before 26th October. Okay, so now what are the benefits of the Singapore saving bonds? First of all, it is safe because it is fully backed by the Singapore government. So unless something happens to Singapore government, but most of the time you should be able to get back your money. So you can reclaim it back in full, and there's no fear of capital loss. And also, you can invest in long terms up to 10 years. So let's say you have a pile of money that you do not need to use it, but then if you just put it aside like a Milo tin or maybe some boxes, the money can actually eroded by the inflation. So this is one of the reasons why we wanted to put in some fixed deposits or maybe Singapore saving bonds to let the money grow and also to beat the inflation to maintain our purchasing power. So, and also the interests are in step up. So the longer you save, the higher the returns. And also it's flexible, so it can be redeemed any month. And there are no penalties for early redemption. Okay, so now how does actually these bonds work? So let's say, for example, so in this example, we'll use about $500 as a capital. So let's say these investors, they have an excess of $500, and they wanted to invest it passively. So then he decided to purchase a Singapore saving bonds. Okay, so for Singapore saving bonds, then he will be able to earn an interest payment. For 1 year, there will be 2 payments. So this is the chart. So for this month, the first issue will be on 1st November. Then the next issue will be on 1st May. So every November and every May for this particular bond for this month, he'll be able to receive an interest payment. Okay, So this cycle will keep on repeats until he decided to redeem early, or maybe 10 years later until the bond matures, he'll be able to get back his $500. But at the same time, he's earning interest payment every 6 months. So the money is kind of like, the money is giving birth to more money. Okay, so now how does the step-up interest work? Because this is something that caught our eye, right? Like first year, maybe not a lot, but then the 10th year is like 3.6. It's like, wow, quite a lot. Okay, so you can click here, the bond details, and then they will show you the interest rate. So here it actually shows that from year 1 to year 10 onwards, and what are the interest rate for each of the year, which is shown here. So until year 7 onwards, the interest rate will start to increase until you achieve 3.63 if you hold the bond to maturity for 10 years. So this is where the average actually comes from. So here, okay? So this is how the step-up interest works. Okay, so now how much can you actually earn in money? Because when we look at the interest rates and we compare against the core inflation, it seems like it can beat, but then we are much more practical. We wanted to know that how much we can actually earn. So you can actually find more information from MAS website where they show you this interest calculator, which I find it very useful. Okay, so here in this calculator, you have to choose this one, which is the bond for this month, and then you put in the amount that you wanted. So it has to be in multiples of 500. So it's in 500, 1,000, 1.5K, 2K, 3.5K as such. And then you click on submit. So once you submit it, then they will provide you this chart to show you how much you can actually earn. Okay. So if we give you an example for this, it's about like 1,000. If let's say you invest 1,000 in SSB, I'm sorry, this one is a typo. It should be October. Okay. Okay, so this is the interest payout for here. And then this one is the interest payout until year 10. So in total, this one is the effective return for every year. So it's an average. And in total, if you invest hold to maturity, it'll be at 333. So if we divide it by 10, so as if that every year you're earning about $33.3 per year. If you hold it to maturity, that means you hold it for the whole 10 years. But however, if you decided to redeem early, how much will I be able to earn? So again, let's go back to the calculator. Please ignore this. It should be October. Okay, so same, you put in 1,000 and then you click here, if you redeem early. So here you have to put in, like, for example, which month and then which year you wanted to redeem back. So you can have a rough estimation that how long should I put my money with SSB. Then once everything done, you click on submit. Okay, I heard someone on the room, so maybe you can mute yourself. Okay, so now, okay, I saw that Miss Su Chin, I heard that you are speaking, so maybe you can try to mute your voice so that you will not disrupt others for this session. Thank you about that. Okay, so now let's get back. Okay, if let's say you redeem early, so earlier I put February 2028. So let's say I only put about 4 years.
Hillary, sorry, I think you are muted. Sorry.
Okay, sorry, I think I'm muted. So I'll just repeat this part, okay? So, okay, let's say, for example, you decided to redeem early and you only hold for 4 years and 3 months. Because earlier on in the previous slide, I showed that I decided to withdraw my money in February 2028. So here it shows that I'll be able to get my interest payment in full for the 4 years, but then I'll only hold for 3 months before I take out my money. So here, these 3 months, it will be prorated, which will be shown here. Okay, will be shown here. So this is the amount of money that I'll be getting. And here, it will show you about roughly how much of the interest payment I will be earning for the 4 years and 3 months that I put my money with SSB. So let's do a rough calculation that roughly like 1 year, how much do I get to earn back? So it's about $32.12 per year. So this is how it actually works. So you can work it out, like for example, whether do you wanted to hold your money for maturity, but if you decided to redeem early, how much will you be earning? Okay, so this is a very useful tool that you can play it out. Okay, so now here's the question is that, is SSP actually suitable for you? So there are pros and also there are, of course, with cons. So first off, it is suitable for all passive investors. That means investors that don't want to do anything, they want to take minimal actions, and then they just want to put it one side and then live on with their life. So it's another flexible way to park or save your money instead of putting in a bank. And they are satisfied with the returns about 2 to 3%. So we can see that this month, the rate is about 3.32. Let's take an average. So the previous month, I think in August when I was doing this slide, was about 3%. So there's a slight increment. So it looks good, but then the rates always changes. So don't get your hopes high up. So it's also suitable for low risk appetite because it's a money back guarantee by the Singapore government. So the risk is comparatively lower compared to other investment instruments. And it is not suitable for active investors because there are some investors that wanted to manage their own money. They wanted to invest. But when they do that, they are willing to spend more time for higher returns. Yeah. So they are wanted to have returns more than 2 to 3%. Okay. And they have a much higher risk appetite because when they wanted to identify stocks, they need to know that whether is the company able to perform well so that the company can continue to grow and then they can earn higher returns. So for active investors, maybe they wanted to have their money to work harder for them, so they decided to take their own actions. So it might not be suitable for SSP where you just put your money one side and every 6 months you just earn some interest income. So these are the pros and cons you can consider to see if SSP is suitable for you. Okay. Okay, so now, other than saying all this basic knowledge about SSP, we also wanted to compare some of the rates out there to see that what are the other possible instruments I can consider instead of SSP. Okay, so first off, what is actually an inflation? So let's do an example is that back in 2013, you can purchase a basket of all these groceries in $150, but then along the years pass by, we see that the oil prices increases, the stuff money, other prices of stuff increases. You can also see grocery also increases. This is actually a sign of inflation. So now, fast forward 10 years later in 2023, the same basket of goods that we purchased, we have to use $200, which is an additional $50 to purchase. So in short, inflation actually means that our purchasing power decreases. So earlier on, when I give the example that you have a pile of money that is not really in urgency of need to use, you have extra money available, instead of storing it in a box to let inflation eat into it and then decreases our purchasing power, why not we put this pile of money that is not an urgent use to let it grow and then earn some interest income? As this is the idea of it. Okay, so now for the Singapore inflation. So this one is the latest info that I managed to get, which is in October. Oh, sorry. It should be October. I'm sorry, August. Yes, August. Because the September will only be out by end of the month for this, by around 20 plus October. Then September's rate will be out. But for now, we'll be looking at August. Okay, so here you see there are two lines. One is an all item inflation, and then the other one is the core inflation. So earlier on, we saw the news is that here, this is the 3.4% actually comes from. But then you notice there's a number 4.0. So what is the difference between these two? Okay. So for all items inflation, it measures the price changes of goods and services. So here, based on MAS definition, these are the 6 categories for all items inflation. Whereas for core inflation, they exclude the volatile product prices. So what are the volatile product prices, which they do not include the private transport and also accommodation. So they only look into these 4 parts. Because this one will be able to reflect how the Singapore households spend their money more accurately on their groceries and also other sorts of expenses. Because I don't think there's a lot of people wanted to take private transport like Grab, Gojek to work every day, right? Okay, so now let's look further deep dive to compare between these 2 months, between August and also July, like how did the rate actually drops? Because if you see here, here's August, but then since early 2023, the inflation has been decreasing. So what leads to the drop? Okay, so here are the categories. So this first 4 is actually the core inflation, and then this one is inclusive in the all items inflation. So we can see that these 5 categories actually, they experience a drop compared to July. But then here minus actually means that this one actually decreases. But then here it actually means it increased, but it increased slightly slower compared to July. However, the private road transport actually increases in August. But then because all of the other categories drop, so it also helps to lead the all items inflation to have a slight drop if you compare to July. But then they will definitely show core inflation is 3.4 because it reflects much more accurately on how we actually spend our expenses. So this is what it actually means about core inflation versus all items inflation. Okay. Okay, so we will also compare against the Singapore interest rates, where we will look at their fixed deposits and also the saving accounts. So for here, we will show 5 banks. Definitely, we will include the 3 Singapore big banks. So the first one is Maybank, where you deposit about 20K for 12 months, you'll be earning 3.65%, but then you notice there's an asterisk. So this asterisk means that you need to deposit 1,000 into their current or savings account. So this is the catch. Whereas for RHB, you save about 20K for 6 months, and the interest rate will be 3.6% for October. So every month, different banks will offer different rates. So this one is for DBS. So 1K for 12 months, you earn 3.2%. And UOB is that when you save up 10K with your fixed deposits for 6 months, it's about 2.7. And the rate is same for OCBC, but you need 30K for 6 months. So these are the fixed deposits that's available in October. So here I only show the top 2 and also inclusive of the 3 Singapore big banks. Next, we'll also look at the saving interest rate. So here I put in max. So why max? Is because in order for you to earn all of these rates, which looks very attractive and also able to beat core inflations and also all inflations as well, all items inflations as well. But then I check here for StanChart. For StanChart, they have 5 criteria you need to fulfill. First thing is that you need to credit your salary with them, and then you need to save up a certain amount of money, and then you need to spend a certain amount of money with their credit card. Then you'll be earning 4.88%. So if let's say you insure, that means you buy insurance with them, or you invest your money with them, only then you will earn an additional 3%, which makes up to 7.88%. So this is how it actually means that when you do all these things, fulfill all their criteria, you'll be earning their max saving interest rates. But if let's say you did not do all of these things, then maybe the rates might be slightly lower. So each of these banks, they actually have their own interest calculator. So you can go to their website, put in your relevant information, and then see how much is the actual interest rate that is possible for you. Okay, so this one is just to attract our attention to see that, oh, there's possibility I can earn this, but then does it really happen? You have to find it out in the interest calculator. Okay, so for CPF, which Jian will share more in depth, but then here I just wanted to point it out that OA is still 2.5, SA and also MediSave is 4.04, and the RA will be at 4% from 1st of October to 31st December this year. Okay. Okay, so for MAS bond, we know that earlier there are 3 types of bonds available for us to invest. So why should I consider Singapore saving bonds and not Singapore government securities or T-bills? So here I'll list out some important information that you can easily compare against. So for Singapore saving bonds, here it is a flexible investment period up to 10 years, and you collect your interest payments biannually. So do take note that the minimum amount is 500, and you have to invest in 500. That means in 500 intervals, and the max amount is 200K. Whereas for SGS bonds, it depends on which bond is being opened every month. So it's about 2 to 50 years. And it's also similar to Singapore saving bonds. That means you collect interest payments 2 times per year, and the minimum amount is 1,000. So however, the interest rate is fixed. So let's say, for example, the bond when they open up is 5 years, but then for the next 5 years, if let's say the interest rate is about 2%, then for the next 5 years, it will be only 2%. However, there's no early redemption. So that means when you purchase the bonds, you have to hold the bonds until it matures 5 years later. So this is what it actually means. But then it is tradable. That means you can actually trade it on the SGX exchange platform only if there is a demand. That means there is someone willing to buy from you. Okay, so for T-bills, it's a much shorter bond. It's similar to Singapore government securities, but it's just that the tenor is about 6 months to 1 year, and you purchase it at a discount upfront. So for this one, there's no interest payment, but then you get the discount. Like for example, if let's say there's a certain percentage for the cutoff yield, let's say there's a discount of $20. So you pay 1,000. Then when you purchase it at the upfront, you only pay about $980. But then when you redeem it back, you redeem at $1,000. So that means as if you earn $20 upfront. So this is what T-bills actually means. And similar to SGS, there's no early redemption. Okay, so now let's compare the rates for the MAS bonds. So for Singapore saving bonds, the average return for this month is 3.32%, and the expiry date for the application is 26 October, followed by SGS bonds. So the coupon rate is about 1.875 per annum for the next 30 years. And the upcoming one has not been announced. So this one has actually already closed. So the upcoming one is not announced. So you have to check on the MAS website. And for T-bills, the latest one that was being closed is about 3.87% PA. However, this one is per annum. So that means if the T-bills is 6 months, this cutoff yield has to be divided by 2. Okay. So the next one just recently opened, and the auction date will be in 19 October. They will announce what is the cutoff yield in 19 October. So if you're interested in T-bills, you can also proceed to purchase and find more information on MAS website. So this one will be for 1 year. Okay. Okay, so now if let's say after all this information is gathered, and then you say that, what's my first step? I'm interested to buy. What's my first step? Okay, so how can you buy? So here for MAS bonds, there are 3 ways you can buy, but for SSB, CPF funds is not included. So you can only purchase with cash or SRS funds. So for cash, what you will need is that you will need to have a bank account from these 3 Singapore banks, and also a CDP securities account from SGX. So for that, how you can apply for it is that the first step, you have to have a bank account with these local banks. And then you sign up with the MyInfo or their online form. So you go to their website, and then you can sign up with MyInfo, or you use an online form. And then you have some supporting documents required, which will be mentioned on the website. So this is how you can open a CDP account. And then how you can buy is that on the MAS website, they actually show 2 videos via 2 ways. One is via ATM. Another one is via internet banking. So you can go to the MAS website under Singapore Saving Bonds and then watch this YouTube to find out more on how you can buy Singapore Saving Bonds. Okay, so for SRS funds, so SRS funds is actually a SRS scheme to help to save taxes for your retirement. So it contributes you a dollar for dollar tax relief. However, you can only have 1 SRS account at any one time. So for SRS application, you have to open the SRS account with either DBS POSB, OCBC, or UOB. And how you can apply? So for SRS funds, you can only apply via internet banking from any one of these local banks for your SRS operator, and you cannot apply in person. So that means you have to go to their internet banking portal and then apply for it. Okay, so what are the key details for SSB is that anyone above 18-year-old, including foreigners, can apply for it. And it's a minimum of 500, and then the subsequent will be in multiples of 500. And the maximum amount that you can purchase SSB is about 200K. So there will be a fee of $2 whenever you wanted to apply for it. And it's every month. So every month they will offer the SSB, but then the rates will be different every month. So don't ask me that what is the possible interest rate next month, because I had no idea. It's MAS that mentioned how much will be the interest rate. Okay, so this is the application timeline for this month. So they usually open start of the month, and then they will close on 26 October. And then they will announce like who will be getting this SSB. And then for the first issuance, they will issue it on the next month. So the operating hour is from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. from Monday to Saturday, excluding public holidays. So this is the application timeline for Singapore Saving Bonds. So now, this is another question that most people are much interested to know, is that how I can redeem it, because I can redeem it early at any time without any penalty. So if let's say, if you hold it to maturity, there's nothing need to be done. It's really like you just put your money one side and then let it mature 10 years later. So it will automatically credit into, it depends on how you apply for it. If you apply via cash application, it will credit into the bank account that's linked to the CDP account. But for SRS account, it will go back to your SRS account. If you redeem it early, you can redeem any month. There will be no penalty, but then there's a $2 of transaction fee for this request. And you can only receive it in full the following month. So that means if let's say you request this month, I want to get back my money, but then you can only get back your money next month. That is what it actually means, on the second business day of next month. Okay. So for cash, you can, the channels how you can redeem early. If you apply via cash, then you have to apply via the internet banking. So either internet banking or ATM. And SRS funds, you have to go through SRS operator of their internet banking as well. So this is the timeline. So anytime between this October, you can request to redeem it. But then if the request is after 26 October, then it'll be considered next month. So you have to wait for another month. So then the bonds will be available for redemption by the end of the day of 1st November, which is the second business day. So this is how you can actually redeem early for your SSB. Okay, so to conclude all, I have a quick summary about what are the pros and cons for SSB. Is that it's fully backed by Singapore government. And then there's a AAA rating. And you can redeem it anytime. So the duration is actually flexible, but just keep note that it does not mean that I want to collect my money this month, then I want the money now. It's not like your savings account that when I press my PIN code, then I can get my money now. You have to wait for next month to collect it. So it's not suitable for investors who want higher returns. And here, you need to wait for next month for the redemption, okay? So with that, I'll conclude my sharing for today for Singapore Saving Bonds. So maybe I'll take some questions. So maybe, does anyone have any questions? You can type in the chat, or maybe you can mention over the room, open your speaker and then ask us as well. So I'll be waiting about like 5 minutes before I move on to our next speaker. Can the interest be invested back to SSB? Okay, thank you, Ekyung, for the question, but I don't think that the interest can be invested back to SSB because it's kind of like the interest is being paid to you. So you already have the capital, but then they just pay you the interest. So you only have that capital because it's kind of like the capital is already fixed inside the bond. Okay. T-bill is 6 months. Okay, so for T-bills, T-bills is actually something like Singapore government securities, the SGS bonds. But SGS bonds, if you see earlier, the tenor is from 2 years to 50 years. So it depends every month that which bond is MAS offering. But for T-bills, it's a shorter version of SGS bonds. So it's only 6 months or maybe 1 year. So 6 months, if I'm not mistaken, is every month they will offer 6 months of T-bills, but then 1 year T-bills is every quarter. So this is the, I don't know the reason why they wanted to offer 6 months or as such, but then this is how they actually works. I hope that answers your question, Cindy. Okay. So I hope that for today's sharing about Singapore saving bonds has given you some great value, so that you know that, oh, this is what I know, then how I can like better manage my money. Okay. Thank you, Andrew, but the slides is not available for download because it is considered our copyright, and the video is only live, so that means there will be no recording for rewatch. So if anyone is interested in, they can join us in our auto investing session to learn more about it. The underlying asset is similar to bond. Okay, Cindy, I don't understand your question about underlying asset is similar to bond. So maybe would you mind to clarify about it? Okay, so while Cindy is typing in, so maybe let's play a quick game. Is that earlier on, Caden mentioned that what type of lifestyle does any one of you want? So he shows a very beautiful picture. So the picture is something similar when it comes to my mind, when I saw snowy mountains, it reminds me of Switzerland. So maybe we can have a quick session like, okay, Ken. So maybe I'll just proceed on. So maybe while I'm speaking, you can also type in like, which country would you like to consider to retire, or maybe you would like to explore? Maybe you can type on the chat while I proceed on with it. So thank you, Cindy, for the question. I'm sorry I'm not able to answer your question, but I hope that you've gained value from our sharing today. So let me share my screen. Okay, so my session is done. So consider tick. And I hope that you all have fun learning about the Singapore saving bonds. So next up, we'll move on to CPF, where here is Jian Da. So he will be sharing more about CPF. So before I pass on the mic to Jian Da, so maybe I share about a short, quick background about him. So Jian Da is actually a senior group financial services director in a financial advisory firm where he specialized in retirement planning and also risk management. So I think he's the best guy to share more about CPF, because the reason why we have CPF is for our retirement. So he has actually been with VIA for more than 10 years. He's not our staff, but then he's a special guest for today. So actually, I'm quite excited to have him on board to share more about CPF, because to me, CPF is a mystery. I only know CPF is that it takes 20% of my salary, put it aside, and then wait until I'm 55 or onwards, then I can start to get some income for my retirement. And also CPF OA is for like for houses, for kids' education and as such. So you can see CPF is still a mystery for me. So without further ado, I'll pass on the mic to Jian Da. So Jian Da, maybe you can carry on from here.
Yes, thank you, Hilary, for the kind introduction. So just a very quick one. I've known VIA, and in fact, I've known Caden for more than 14 years. So I just did a calculation. So I was in a VIA batch 4. So I would like to say that after joining VIA, actually it changed my life. So my family's financial situation actually improved significantly. And also very grateful for Caden for being a mentor and a friend. So without further ado, what I'll do is quickly share my slides, and this will be what we will be going through today. Here, hopefully everyone can see my slides. Okay. Okay, just give me one moment. Let me just go. Okay. Are you seeing my full screen or?
Not yet in full screen, so maybe you need to click on present. The one at the bottom right.
I think it's just give me one moment.
Yep.
Apologies for the technicality here. Okay, so today I think one of the most important things that I want to achieve with everyone is to identify whether we can retire using CPF, and then here, some of the usual disclaimers that I need to run through just to skip everything, but just to share that this is mainly educational and it's not product advice. So this is very important. And this is a little bit about me, not the most important, because today is very much about you and what you want to achieve today. And then, yeah, so some of the other things. And I just want to keep the pictures here for a while because I just want to share that why I so keen on looking at retirement planning is very much towards because when I observe my family, I realized that my father, who is a taxi driver, couldn't retire at the age of 65. So what we have in our family is a fully paid HDB in Hougang, and then a very small amount of money in the bank. So in fact, I don't think that my father would be, or my parents will be able to retire comfortably in Singapore. And of course, I think sadly this March, my father unfortunately passed away due to cancer, and maybe he will be retiring well in the other world. So this is a little bit about why I'm doing this, and so keen on the topic on CPF. So at retirement. So I think I'm not too sure whether any one of you has been looking at CPF website or even go towards the mission and vision statement of CPF. If you have never been to the website, I just want to quickly point to you what the CPF is for and their mission and vision. So here, CPF in short is trying to help Singaporeans to save for retirement. But if that is true, then why do we keep seeing articles where Singaporeans are not able to retire? They need to save 9 years longer. Only 25% think they have sufficient for retirement. All these things, like even aunties picking up rubbish, doing exercise for retirement. So these are some of the things that is always around us. So what does CPF really mean? So does it mean that we are cash poor forever? So to debunk this myth, let us just quickly look at how CPF works. If you're not familiar, this will be a very good opportunity for you to be looking at how CPF works. So if you are employed, drawing a salary in Singapore, and you're Singaporean PR, then you have to contribute to CPF. So monthly income will be separated to two portions. One will be take-home pay and the other will be the CPF. So just a very quick illustration. Imagine that you have a $3,000 paycheck every month. This will be how things are. 20% employee contribution, 17% employer contribution. That is if you are below 55, so the contribution rates will change. So if that 3,000 income, you'll be contributing or having $1,110 over in your monthly CPF. Okay, so this is just a very basic. And this amount will be spread across 3 different accounts. So we have the ordinary account, special account, and the MediSave account. So all these accounts will have their own interest rate. So you can see that the ordinary account gives you 2.5%, special account 4%, and then MediSave account 4%. So this is the generic one. So later I'll just explain a little bit of how things have changed. And if you are below 55 and above 55, things are a little bit different. You can see that you can attract a little bit more interest. Like for example, up to 5%, we'll combine 60,000 in a CPF account. And if you are above 55, up to 6%. So these are very attractive interest rates from the CPF. So all this information, if you need, you can just go to the CPF website and you'll be able to see how the interests are. Okay, so these are how things are in terms of contribution rates. As you grow older, the contribution rates will change. So I will not be running through this in detail. And based on September 1st, there are some changes. So the ordinary wage ceiling originally was 6,000. Now it has increased to 6,003, which means that if you're earning above $6,000, you will have more going towards your CPF. So you have a little bit lesser take-home pay, but that's okay because you'll be having more in your CPF. So this will be how things change. And then these are how things are going to step up. So all the way until January 1st, 2026, the salary wage ceiling will be going all the way up from $6,000 to $8,000. So which means if you are earning $8,000, you will still be contributing more. Okay, so which is also quite good. And the annual salary ceiling, there's no change. Okay, so the next, after understanding how CPF is coming in and distributed, the next question is what can we do with our CPF money? And these are some of the things that we can do, like what Hillary mentioned just now, although she is very humble to say that she knows not a lot about the CPF, but what she mentioned was almost that. So we can use the CPF for education, housing, which most Singaporeans are using, and then for insurance, like the CareShield Life, MediShield Life, and we can use it for investment. And last but not least, towards the retirement. So this is the retirement part will be what CPF is all about. Okay, so today's focus, because CPF is such a wide scope and so many things within the CPF itself. So today's focus will be very much towards the investment and how it eventually leads to retirement. So the very first thing that I want to share, something that is very recent and I mean something that is hurting most people will be an interest rate. So you can see that inflation is at a high. And how does inflation correlate with the amount that you need for retirement? So this is a very simple illustration to share with you. So right now, if you see interest rate at high, 4%, then whatever investment return that you get is actually really diminished. So the real return is actually lesser. So which also means that at such a high interest rate, the amount that we need for retirement may have to be higher. Okay, so these are some of the articles. I think Hillary also shared some of the articles here, 5.5% inflation, etc. These are older news. And then the floor rate, whether there will be a change. This is in August 2022. But interestingly, what is happening now in October 1st is that the special and MediSave account from the original 4% has been increased to 4.04. So which means that right now the CPF special account is actually drawing higher return. And this is here. So of course, I also want to share a little bit about the MAS, what they are supposed to do and what are their mission, is that they are trying to promote a non-inflationary economic growth. So hopefully we can achieve that so that our life can be a little bit easier. Okay, so let me just quickly run through how we can work towards the retirement planning. So just now we talked about the CPF portion, how CPF works and what we can do with the CPF. And then the next question that I think everyone should be thinking about is, if you are looking towards retirement, how much do you need to retire? Have you done any calculation on how much you need? If not, today will be very good because we'll be running through how we can do that. So this is me when I was 30 years old. So it was like 10 years back when I started to really look at how I should be planning for my retirement. So I decided that I want to retire at age 65. And I'm looking at how things are in my family. I mean, I planned that I'll be surviving for 20 years. So I'll be able to live until 85 years old. And then I was just expecting a lifestyle of 2005. So what a lifestyle of 2005 means is that you can just imagine if with the 2005, the type of lifestyle that you can, the housing, whether you can go for restaurants, holidays, that's how my $2,500 per month come about. So everyone has a different number, but for me at the age of 30, I was looking at $2,500 at the age of 65 for retirement. So anyone want to? Okay, so what is going to happen is that with the calculation, based on that parameters, I will be required an amount of 1.8 million for retirement. Just based on the $2,500 per month type of lifestyle. I'm not sure whether this number scares you, but if I calculated your own numbers, I think it is easily this amount. So imagine you are looking for a lifestyle that is more than 2005, then we are going to expect a higher amount for retirement. Okay. So of course, that being said, the first part was very much towards how much I need. But because we are all working and we are drawing salary, so I did a calculation. You can also do this calculation at home to estimate how much you can earn in your lifetime. So what I did was I started off with being an engineer, earning $3,000 per month. So I thought that my boss will love me a lot and give me an increment of 4% year over year. So at the end of 65 years old, I should be drawing an income of about 150,000. So I did a calculation using simple maths, half base times height for the triangle and then the length and breadth for the area under the graph. So total, I will be able to earn about 3 million lifetime income. So what you can do is also you can do an estimate on how much you can earn in a lifetime. So 3 million. So this is at least what I was worth at the end, at the start of my 30 years old. So let's assume just now I needed 1.8 for retirement and I can earn 3 million. So which means effectively I only need to save 60% of my earnings every year, which means every 3,000 I only spend 1,002. Everyday budget of $40, I will be able to achieve my retirement numbers. So that is actually quite doable if I really save. But it's very difficult to save 60% of our salary through different life stages. Like when I'm single and we want to pak tor, we want to buy gifts for our loved ones, then it becomes very difficult to save all this money. And so eventually there's one other part that I was looking at. So everyone can also do this, can look at the amount of CPF that you will have upon retirement. So the question is, how do we get this number? Okay, so interestingly, in CPF, they have everything. They even have this retirement calculator. So if you go over to the CPF website, you can find this retirement calculator. The version may look different because this was retrieved quite some time back. And then you can just input your desired monthly retirement income, and then they'll tell you, oh, how much you need. And then you can also project for you the amount of CPF you have at the age of 65 or your retirement age. So this is how it's calculated. I will have about 1 million in CPF. So which means actually quite good because I needed 1.8 million and 1 million actually comes from the CPF. But so this is how things are. I only need to find the other 800,000 in order to achieve my retirement target. Okay. In life, things happen, and one of the things that really very common among Singaporeans is that they'll propose and they'll buy HDB together. So once they buy HDB, the most common thing that they'll use is through using the CPF money. So here, there's always a common question that I get from my clients and friends. They always ask whether they should show hand your CPF for their housing. Anyone has any views on this? Should you show hand your CPF? No. Okay, Racing says no. Okay, for me, I think it depends. If you can invest a CPF for something that is higher because the interest rate that they are providing is like nominal. If you borrow from the HDB, so if you can get your CPF to be working harder or your CPF money to be invested in a higher return, then of course you should consider that. But however, if you do not have such methods, then the easier way is just really to show hand. But of course, today we will be looking at that. And let's see, right now, housing is really expensive. This is an amount of BTO that I'm looking at. Previously at 500,000. I think now BTO is like crazy. HDB resale, a number of them has been going through 1 mil. And let's just assume a 500,000 HDB property. And also to assume gender equality, this will be how much we'll be co-paying for our property every year. Okay, for a 30-year tenure, every month we'll be deducting about $900. So this is quite a big amount. So by doing so, it also means that it's like in the end games where Dados step one finger, half the population gone. So by doing this property purchase, the CPF money also gone by half. So instead of just now the 1 million, buying this property actually brings the CPF money down by 500,000. So this is how things are. But these are very common life stages, changes, things that we need to go through. So I'm just sharing with you how things are and how it impacts your CPF money for retirement. So now the target no change, 1.8 million, but CPF drops to 500,000. You have to find a shortfall of 1.3 million. So is it possible to achieve the retirement lifestyle or the retirement target of 1.8 million with the current 500,000? So it's actually possible if we look at the way that, okay, so we look at the CPF investment scheme, whether it's possible to achieve that. Because out of all the schemes, the only way that we can potentially close this gap, the 1.3 million gap, will be through CPF investment. And so this is where we will be looking at what CPF can do. So CPF can be used to buy stocks and shares, equities. It can be used to buy property, funds, REITs, bonds, gold, ETF, etc. So whatever you can buy, you can look at the CPF website. They can show you what CPF OA can do, CPF IS special account can do. So these are the two things that we can do using the CPF, okay, OA and special account. So the question is, can we use all your money in your CPF account to invest? So CPF is actually, the government is actually very prudent, so they do not allow us to invest all our money. So they have this rule: any money that is in excess of 20,000 in your ordinary account, that means anything above 20,000, and anything above 40,000 in your special account can be invested. So this 20,000 and 40,000 must be kept in your ordinary account and your special account. Okay, and then even for ordinary account, there's also a percentage where you can invest for shares, property, funds, and bonds, and then another 10% for gold ETF and other gold products. So these are some of the constraints that you can invest using CPF, but it's very difficult to do your own calculation. And the easiest way is that you can do a login to CPF, go to My Statements, and then you can scroll down to see. So there will be one section where they will tell you how much you can invest for which category. So this is very important. You can just take this down. And before you can invest your CPF ordinary account, you need to set up your account first. And this is some of the criteria that you need in order to set up your CPF IS account. So these are the 5. And 3 agent banks, the usual suspect, the DBS, OCBC, UOB. So take note, you can only have one CPF investment account. This is very important. And last but not least, because right now, CPF board wants you to be very clear on what you are doing. They will want you to take a CPF self-awareness questionnaire. So you need to achieve that before you can do any form of CPF investment. So this is something that it's not going to be very difficult. It's just an MCQ, but it will let you know what are the risks that you're taking and what are the opportunity costs. Okay, so this is just now what we were talking about. After buying a property, I have 500,000, and then I need to achieve 1.8 million for my $2,500 per month lifestyle. So I figured out that after all the contribution, the installment using CPF, I will be able to still get up $5,000 per year. So if I'm able to invest $5,000 per year at 10% return, then this is where I'll be able to achieve my 1.8 million. So if you are listening in right now, just now we talk about the amount that you need for retirement, then the other amount that you need will have in your CPF. And then now we are calculating the shortfall using whatever that we can invest on a regular basis from our ordinary account. Okay, so I need to achieve $5,000, invest $5,000 per year at 10%. So you can do your own calculation with the amount that you have in your CPF remaining, the amount that you need, and then we can do a back calculation to see how much you need to invest. Okay, so I'll stop here for a while. I want to quickly share 3 stories through my experience as a financial advisor. The very first one is about Mr. Tan, who is a managing director of a manufacturing company. So this is a very interesting case where I was assigned this client after one of my senior left the industry. So I was looking through his portfolio and I realized something very interesting. He was investing his CPF money into this fund. So when I knock on his door, sit in front of him, he was like the experienced guy down there. And he told me that, hey, JD, I always believe in investing. That's why I invest my CPF money. But I find it very hard to explain to him or even to share with him what he is invested in. Anyone see anything interesting on the CPF OA fund that he invested in? Anyone? The growth is flat. Yes, if you look at it this way, do you remember how much CPF OA is giving in terms of interest? That's the first question. So it's 2.5, and does it make sense for him to be investing in such a fund? To me, I mean, it's common sense. If you are investing your CPF money, it's always an opportunity cost. If you are trading 2.5% for something that is potentially lower, then it won't make sense at all. So this is where I shared with him that it will not make sense for him. But luckily right now, there are this type of fund that is performing below CPF is no longer available, but we still have to be very prudent. The most important thing is when you invest your CPF money, you must take note that you must be investing in something that is potentially higher than the CPF interest rate. Although common sense, but I realize that common sense sometimes is really not common. So this is very important point. And the next question that typically a lot of people ask is, should you invest your CPF special account money? Now it's 4.04%. Okay, should you? Anyone? Will you? Will you invest your CPF special account? So I think the answer is very clear cut. If you are someone that can take a lot of risk, you think at 4%. Yes, I think Racing, thank you for your participation. It really depends. If you are someone that thinks 4%, small, very small, I want to take more risk. Yes, you can invest a special account for a potentially higher return. But to me, very simple. If we look at the whole portfolio your financial portfolio as a whole, will it be making sense that you keep something that is safe growing at 4% year on year? Some of my clients, I see them, they have about 500,000 in their special account. That's what the biggest I've seen. So 4% of 500,000 is actually quite a lot. Okay, so without doing much things, they can actually use this interest to pay off for a lot of things. So these are some of the things that we can consider. But to me, normally I would say just keep it at 4%. There's no point to take extra risk for something that's almost guaranteed for. Okay. And story number 2, this is a very interesting because this is a very good friend of mine. He was age 42 in 2016. So this is the account that he shared with me from CPF. So this guy is a Singapore PR. So he's from Malaysia. So at a very young age, he came over to Singapore and then he started to invest. No, he don't do investment. So he just came over to Singapore and work, and then he started to contribute to CPF, and he is very clear that he's not going to stay in Singapore. So the lifestyle that he wanted was to go back to Malaysia and chill. Okay, so this is the amount that he has in 2016 at 42 years old. So 200,000 here, special account, 200,000. Why is this interesting is because if we project this 450,000 until he's 65 years old, he will have about 900,000 in his CPF. That was assuming that he stopped work at the age of 42. Okay, no new contribution. If that doesn't excite you, you take this 900,000, you multiply by 3, because that is in terms of ringgit, and just imagine what is the lifestyle that he can enjoy if he were to retire at the age of 42 in 2016. So this is how interesting it is. And one thing that he did because he doesn't invest and he doesn't want to buy any property in Singapore. So what he did was he transferred his ordinary account to the special account. Okay, every year when there's an allowance for the full retirement sum, you will be topping up. Okay, so he's transferred his ordinary account to special account. So from ordinary account 2.5, the moment he transfer over to special account, he get additional 1.5%. So this is how we compound his return. But take note that this is going to be a one-way traffic. And this number will continue to grow. And for this year, if you are reaching 55, the full retirement sum is looking at near to 200,000. Okay. And last but not least, I want to share the third story. And this will be this is a recommendation, but do not take it as a recommendation on my part. So this is just an example. So we have this fund from the Evening Star, which is 5-star rated. Every year is giving you 5% every year. Past 5 years, past 3 years, past 10 years, or even since the inception has been giving consistent 5%. It's low risk, broadly diversified. So my question to everyone here is, will you invest a CPF ordinary account into this fund? Will you? CPF ordinary account is 2.5%. but this fund is consistently giving you 5%. Will you invest? Okay, so I think most people will be thinking that, yes, I will invest because it's giving you higher return. And then if I were to tell you that the sales charges is going to be 3%, will you still do that? So many times we are very drawn to the returns of the funds, but we forgot to ask about the charges. So this is the important thing that everyone, I hope, can take back today. If you are to invest in anything, always look at the charges, because sometimes the charges can kill. So imagine that just now the fund is performing at 5%, but the charges is at 3%. So effectively, you're getting lesser. So this is important. But one good news that I want to share is that CPF actually kept its fees. So from 1st October 2020, now the initial sales charge for CPF investment will be at 0. So it's a very good news for all the investors out there using CPF. You are no longer charged up to 3%. Okay, so these are very important thing. And the rep fee, if any, is now kept at 0.4. So you can imagine that the charges to invest in CPF is actually very low. Okay, something to consider. So some of the key takeaways, I'll quickly just share the summary. So we need to invest in instruments that gives higher return. This one is we must do that. Transferring CPF ordinary account to special account, there is a one-way traffic, is kept in the amount that you can transfer. And no matter what you do, always look at the charges. So if the charges is going to be very high, then you must factor in. Okay. So just now we talked about investing $5,000 per year at 10% return. So I just want to ask everyone, is finding something that is consistently giving you 10% easy? Is it easy to find something that is giving you a consistent 10% return? So this is where you can look at. So for under CPF wise, you can look at the stocks and shares that is available under CPF investment scheme. You can go to the CPF website. Okay, so sorry, the SGS website, and then you can look at stocks under CPF investment scheme, and then you can look at all the equities that you can invest. Okay, so this is one. And then if you look at the REITs, some of the REITs performance, whether you can find something that is consistently giving you 10%, and then investment linked policies or investment funds, whether anything that is giving you consistent 10%. So unfortunately, at the point in time, I do not have much information or much knowledge in investment at the age of 30. So I do not have anything that is giving you 10% return. So these are some of the ways that we can really increase the returns for the ordinary account. So we can always do a stock pick during the VIA class. I mean, if they give good stocks, good value stocks, we can invest in that. We can also look at REITs, mutual funds. But today I want to share with you a very simple way of investing. So this is also talking about a low cost index fund. But to draw some similarity, because this is not the only fund or the foolproof fund that you should just do 100% in this. This is a starter kit, just to share with you what is about investing. So this is ETF, STI ETF. So everyone will be familiar. So STI ETF actually mimics the STI index. So our Straits Times index. So we can see, so since inception, the return is about 6%. So if you look at the chart rise, long-term investing since the inception, the index is always going up. That's one. And in terms of investment-wise, you can see the composition is going to be the same. So later, what is George will be going through with some of the ETF, like banks, industrial goods and services. Whatever percentage, you will try to do it similar. So this is what we call an index fund. So this index is mirroring the STI. Okay, so looking at how the STI is performing, instead of 10% year-on-year return, I thought that it's more likely that I can achieve a 6% year-on-year return. So this is where I do an adjustment in returns. So what I'm trying to share with you is that sometimes we have to be more realistic in the returns that we are targeting. And with 6%, it also means that I will not be able to achieve 1.8 million because I originally needed 10%. But now I can only do 6% return. So eventually I can only get 1.2 million. There will be a shortfall of 600,000. Okay. So the next question that we will have is that since right now, based on the targeted return of 6%, I still have a gap of 600,000. What should I do? So very simply, other than CPF, because right now, as how things are looking at the CPF, I don't think we will have enough to retire using the CPF especially after buying the property. So what we can do is that we can still invest cash. Okay, so if I invest $5,000 in cash per annum at 6%, I will still be able to achieve the 1.8 million. Okay, so I'll be able to have my lifestyle. But of course, in life, there's always options. Property, we can buy it cheaper instead of 500,000. If you consider something that's lesser, we will have more for retirement. For retirement income, instead of 2,500, if we do it lesser at 2,000, it's also possible. But I think the most possible way and most logical way to me, and for me to share with everyone, is that we should always supplement the CPF retirement amount with cash investment. So with the cash investment, we can potentially have even more returns. So don't just rely on the CPF. That's what I'm trying to share. So just a very quick recap of how we can plan for your own retirement. Okay, so how much you need, how much you have, your shortfall, then you can construct a plan, an investment or retirement portfolio to reach that eventual number, just like what we went through. So you can construct your own portfolio with CPF investments, special account, long-term savings, cash holdings, or other investments that use more. So this is how we can structure and plan for our retirement. And then with that, I will end my sharing today. Hopefully, I have enough information and anything that you are curious about, because this is a very short timing to share something that is so big in terms of quantum for CPF. So if you have any questions regarding retirement, CPF investment, etc., you can just scan and leave your contact with me. I'll reach out to you and answer your queries. So what I'll do now is I'll just run through some of the questions here. Oh, I see. Alice, is your 1.8 million needed for retirement consists only of OA or included amount from all three accounts? So for the retirement amount that I'm considering is just excluding the Medisave. So the amount that I have in the CPF, okay, is I'll only take into consideration the OA and the special account. That's one. And how I come about the 1.8 million calculation is based on lifestyle and assumed returns and inflation. Hope I answered that part of the question. So yeah, for Hui, sorry, I cannot see the full name. Hui Kun. So I think any conditions that we must fulfill before we can transfer funds in our OA to asset. Yes, I think you need to have at least the 20,000 first 20,000. Then the rest you want to transfer, you can transfer to a special account. But the special account, there's a cap which is based on the special full retirement sum. Okay. And then we have so I think Choi said it wasn't clear if we should do all in for our HDB. So I think the answer is it depends on your risk profile. So if you can find something that is you can invest your CPF, because CPF, if you want to borrow from CPF, is 0.1% on the 2.5, so it's like 2.6%. So the idea is that if you can find something that is investing more than 2.6%, then you should invest your CPF. But if you are not able or not confident of doing so, then of course, if you want to, you can consider to clear off the debt. But to me, very simple. If I can, I will always, I think hitting 2.6%, I mean, this is based on my own opinion. Hitting more than 2.6% is not difficult on the long term. So for me, I will not do any all-in. I will keep the money and invest. Okay, so for someone who is 30 and looking to buy a flat at 35, would the advice on investing using OA still be relevant? Because OA would be the money that you can use for housing. So this will be the same question, same way that I'll be answering. If you can find something that we can invest higher, of course, first thing first, you must have the down payment for the property, because having a roof over your head is always the most important thing. Okay, that is the first thing that you need to do. But anything that is above the down payment, you can consider to invest if you think that doing 2.6%, more than 2.6% is not difficult. Okay, sorry. And then, okay, any further questions? If not, you can always scan and then I can just touch base with you later. Hillary, I think there's no other questions here.
Yes, I saw from the chat like the
Anyone
questions
that
are
missed?
like only this few.
Yeah, I think-
Nothing, but earlier on it's just that they wanted to ask, is it not auto wipe or is there a choice like for the HDB? But I think you have answered Troy's question.
Oh, so okay. I think there's some that. Oh, so there's some direct question. Okay, so there's is it auto wipe out? So I think the common thing that is happening is if you don't want it to be auto wipe out, there's always ways to invest your money out first. So it's the same way for property. Like before the CPF money is being wiped out, you can transfer this to investment first, CPF investment. It's the same for CPF shielding at the age of 55. So some of the people, what they do to shield their CPF is that they move their special account money out of the special account for a short time, so that the CPF board will just deduct more money from the ordinary account. So the Jazz is an option. It's an option. So we can shield this. We can do some part to shield this. Okay, so there's a Cindy, if you don't mind, I just read out one of your other questions. Yeah. And an incoming partner just wipe all his CPF to buy and pay 50%. Okay, the HDB wife has bought already under singles earlier. Oh, this part I think you better check with the HDB side, because now I think this question is more towards the HDB ruling. So Cindy, I think this part I guess it'll be better for you to check with CPF. Okay.
Okay, I think that's all the question regarding to CPF. So if let's say if you have any more, do type in, because after this session, Jianda will be going correct. Off. So at the end of the session, anything regarding to CPF, I'm not the best person to answer, so I will just direct you to CPF website or ask from their help desk. So earlier on, when Jianda mentioned about the HDB, what I get is that instead of when you buy HDB and auto wipe out everything, you can take a portion out to invest first, then let CPF to then let HDB to wipe it out. Is that correct? Is that what you're trying to mention?
Yes, correct. I think this is a common way that most people are adopting, so that they do not have so much to be wiped out from the CPF OA. But that's on the context that you are using that money for other investment that is yielding better. If not, it may not totally make sense also. And I think YK has one question. Given the lower cost, is it worth to invest in Evening Star? I mean, okay, just to clarify, the Evening Star is not a recommendation. It's a pseudo. It's not a real fund. Okay, it's just to share to illustrate my example that we need to look at the cost. But right now, if you can find a fund that is giving the same type of return, consistent 5% with current CPF sales charge at 0, then I think it may make sense, because rather than the 2.5% that CPF is giving you, you are getting 2.5% more, which is the 5%, then it may make sense. Okay, but of course, that being said, CP investment carries risk and is not always that past performance is equal to future performance. So we still need to monitor. Okay.
So Jianda, I think YK's next question, maybe you can put in the link in the chat that where they can find, like earlier on in your slide, you show the link on where they can find, so it'll be easier for everyone if they are interested.
I'll do that in a while. So I think where can we potentially look for investment with OA? I think this part, the VIA side can handle more, because if you're looking at equities, then there's potential higher upside also, especially at this climate. I think now is a very good time to be looking at more of the value stocks. Correct. So
okay, I think that's
I'll stop sharing.
Questions. Yeah.
Thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you, Jianda, for the session. So
yes. Look forward to seeing everyone. Okay, take care.
Okay, thank you, Jianda, for the session. It's been fruitful to let us know more about CPF and also like how are some of the tricks we can like save our CPF before the wipeout. Okay. And then thanks again, Jianda. So with that, we'll conclude this session for CPF. So maybe we'll move on to the next one. So thanks again, Jianda.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so now we already covered CPF. So finally, we'll come to our last session, which is about passive investing. So we'll talk more about ETFs that earlier on Jen have given some suggestion. One of them is STI, but then our next speaker will share more about you that how you are able, possible, not confirmed, not 100% guarantee confirmed, but how are you possible to get 10% per year of returns. So the next speaker was supposed to be George, but however, yesterday he mentioned that he was not feeling well. So he's under the weather, so he could not present. So with that, today has a special guest, which is Caden. So unfortunately, Caden won't be able to join us live today because he has another class running today. So we cannot split him into half and have him to run this session and then run another session that is also ongoing at the moment. So he has done a pre-recorded session to share more about the index fund, which you can consider. So for Caden, he's actually the founder of VIA. So he has actually conducted value investing training across 11 countries on how to invest in public listed companies with a proven formula. So earlier on, Jianda mentioned that after he has attended Caden's lesson, which helps him to better manage his money and also invest his money. So with that, I'll have my colleague to play the pre-recorded session to let you learn more about how you can also invest in some index funds. So with that, I'll have Eugenia to share with us. So Eugenia, you can take over the floor. So please give her a moment while she's doing the sharing. Okay.
Hi, this is Kiran from VIA Value Investing Academy. Now, thanks for joining us for this webinar on a very beautiful Saturday. Just to let you know that originally the speaker should be George, but I think he's not feeling well, which is why I'll be taking over him. And just to let you know that this is a pre-recorded session because I only got to know that George was sick yesterday, which is Friday, and today is Saturday. So even though it's pre-recorded, do not be unduly worried because this entire session is still facilitated by Hilary, which is one of the speakers, as well as the host, as well as my colleague Eugenia, which is the manager in charge of this entire event. So don't worry, I'll still speak to the camera as though I'm speaking to you. So let's get started. Now, since I'm the third speaker, so I think I better share something very, very important, which is a disclaimer. So just to let you know that our company, MyKinesis Investments, as well as VIA, we are not operated by a broker, dealer, or registered financial advisor. So even though I'm going to share with you something very specific, it's just for educational purpose and it's not meant to be or does it constitute any sort of investment advice or recommendations. Okay, good. So let's get started, right? Now, if you look at this slide over here, you can see some of these faces look very familiar to you. For example, Elon Musk is someone that's very familiar, Jeff Bezos, and so on. Now, this guy, Bernard, actually is one of the richest men in the world, and he manages a very huge empire that sells very expensive handbag, which is this LV, not LV, Louis Vuitton. And if you look at all these things, let's say number 4, Bill Gates, number 5, Warren Buffett, and then the list goes on, right? These are the richest people in the entire planet, which also means that they become rich. If you pay attention to the amount of wealth they have, right, it's really huge. But interestingly, none of them became rich by gambling. But I suppose some of the richest people, they do own casinos. Yep. And you may also notice that none of these people who are in this list, they became rich, not by gambling, definitely, not by any form of speculative activities such as trading, yeah, or any sort of NFTs and so on, cryptos and so on. So you realize that all these people, they became richer because they are a business owner, which means that they own a business. Now, so in case some of you have never invested before, and then you know that one of the key things to become wealthy is to become a business owner. So now the question is, what should I do? If you want to do something today or tomorrow or the next couple of weeks, what should I do? So Warren Buffett has once given an advice. And he said that if, let's say we have a sum of money, let's consider it as 100%. Out of this 100%, he recommended to put 10% cash in a short-term government bonds. Now, in our context, if we're residing in Singapore, this is called Singapore government. Yeah, so that's one. But today we're not talking about Singapore government bonds. We're going to talk about the remaining 90%. So Warren Buffett specifically said put 90% in a very low cost S&P 500 index fund. So if you look at this sentence, right, it's pretty long. It starts off with very and all the way until index funds. But sometimes text and pictures can be taken out of context. So it's very important that I share with you the source of the information where Warren Buffett talks about this low-cost S&P 500 index fund. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to escape for a short while and I'm going to share the video. Just give me a second, right? Over here. Make sure that I share the sound and then I'm going to start playing. After this video, I just go back to my presentation. So let me just make sure the sound is okay. Max to the max. So here it goes.
Buy an S&P 500 low-cost index fund. Keep buying it through thick and thin, and especially through thin. The temptation gets, when you see bad headlines in newspapers, maybe to say, well, maybe I should skip a year or something. Just keep buying it. American business is going to do fine over time. The Dow Jones Industrial Average went from 66 to 11,497 in 1 century. And since that century has ended, it's more or less doubled again. The trick is not to pick the right company. Most people aren't equipped to do that, and plenty of times I make mistakes on that. The trick is to essentially buy all the big companies through the S&P 500, and to do it consistently, and to do it in a very, very low-cost way, because costs really matter in investments. If returns are going to be 7 or 8%, and you are paying 1% for fees, that makes an enormous difference in how much money you have on retirement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Warren Buffett. So let me just go stop share and I'm going to go back to my slide. Just give me a second. Right, so suddenly, where's my share button? Oh, okay, the share button is here. Yeah, so if you look back and refer back to the video that I've just played, Warren Buffett specifically talked about a very low cost S&P 500 index fund. Yeah, but this sentence is really long, right? Let's break down into a few components. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to explain what is an index first. And then I'm going to explain what is an index fund. And I'm going to explain what is an S&P 500 index fund. And I'm going to explain what is a very low cost S&P 500 index fund. And I'm going to specifically talk about which are the S&P index fund that I'm investing, which is for education purpose, not for recommendation. So let's get started. So let's talk about the first thing, which is what is an index. Now, if you have traveled to some parts of the world, right, even as near as Malaysia, you may notice that whether the country is a developing country or a fully developed country, most likely they will have an entity, right, called a stock exchange. So in Singapore, we have a Singapore Stock Exchange. In Japan, they have Tokyo Stock Exchange. And then in Taiwan, right, they have the Taiwan Stock Exchange. So almost every city or even country, right, they have their own stock exchange. So as the name implies, the stock exchange is for buyers and sellers to exchange stocks. So buyers buy stock from the seller. Yeah, seller sells stock to the buyer. So, this stock is moving from one person to the other person. So exchange. Yep. So in Singapore, we have our SGX, but it's pretty small in terms of the number of companies that are listed, which is about 780. But if you refer back to US, in which they have 3 mature stock exchange, there are many companies over there. So there's thousands of companies. But whether it's thousands or 100, it all starts with one company that's being listed. And in order for any company to be listed, they have to go through a process called IPO, which stands for Initial Public Offering. So for example, in Singapore, we have some small companies such as Noon Talk Media, which was listed in the Singapore Stock Exchange. And we also have a local enterprise called Oh My Home. But this time around, they are listed in NASDAQ. So you all start with one company that's being IPO listed, second company, and then boom, over time, right, over years, there are tons of companies. And if we refer back to the video that Warren Buffett said, he said not everybody could do stock picking, which is quite difficult. And if you do not know how to do stock picking, so what do? We can buy a basket of companies, a basket of good companies. So I'm going to explain how it works. So if you look at this slide, right, there are many companies. So if you want to do stock pick, it's really difficult. Very difficult, huh? Because most of the time, right, when you buy stocks, we get it wrong and then we end up losing money. So what do you mean by buying a basket? Buying a basket, right? So with me, I have now, so what happened is if we can travel back in time, maybe a couple of decades ago, right? There is a group of people whom they call themselves analysts. So if analysts wanted to have a feel of whether the stock market is going up or coming down, they need to have some form of quantitative indicator, some form of numbers. So what they did was they divide the entire market, let's say the US market, right, into a few sectors. And for US total, there are 11 sectors. So for example, one of the 11 sector is called healthcare sector. Another one of the sector, it could be IT sector. Another sector, right, could be a consumer discretionary sector. So total, there are 11 sectors. 11 sectors. So what happened is the analysts, right, will go to each individual sector, identify some, to them, good companies, big ones, and then they put it into this container. So in other words, they will go to IT sector, pull out some companies, put into this container. Healthcare sector, look at some good companies and put into this container. And then they'll just repeat this for 11 sectors. So right now, what happens is right now I have a smaller container, which consists of a smaller number of stocks against the entire stock market, which is quite huge. But inside this cup, there are still quite a number of companies. So what happened was the analysts were the share price of each company and then average it up. So in other words, if this average share price go up, they will say that the entire, because bull, right, has a horns that pointing upward, so bullish. So if this indicator or this average share price, right, comes down, they'll say that the stock market is bearish. Well, they use their front paw, right, to do a downward movement. So bullish, up, bearish, come down. So this average indicator has a name and is known as index. Chinese, right, is called 指数. So in other words, you cannot buy index because this is just for communication. Just for articulation, whether is it a bull market or bear market, you can't really buy academic number. Okay. So some of these examples that I'm going to show you right now are just examples of indexes from different countries. So for example, in Singapore, right, we have our own Straits Times Index. Their container, much smaller, consists of 30 companies. And then for the other one, right, Standard & Poor. So right now everybody know is US. And you may notice that at the end of this S&P, right, there's this number 500, which means that this container will consist of 500. Now, occasionally it may 499, 501, but it's around 500. Then the next one will be Hang Seng, which is Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a city, it's not a country. So in total, the average share price, which is called index, right, contains 50 companies. And of course, Nikkei, right, is Japan, 225 companies. So almost all countries and cities have their own index to show whether it's bullish or bearish. So we have explained what is index. So the next one is what's the index fund? Okay, it's fund. Now, so we have an index, but unfortunately, you cannot buy index. So what happened is some fund managers, they will go out and then they will start selling some products and they say, hey, we have this fund. It copies after the index, which means that if the index has 500 companies, I'll take this fund and buy these 500 companies. And if the index has a company called Apple, you take the money and then buy Apple because copy shamelessly, right? Now, and if Apple takes up, let's say, 3% of the entire S&P 500, they'll use the money and then buy 3% of Apple. So they just copy the index shamelessly. And since the fund copies after the index shamelessly, which also means that if the index go up, of course, the fund will go up. If the index come down, of course, the fund will come down. Because copy shamelessly, right? So now what is the name of this fund that copies after the index? It's quite easy. Since copies after index, it's simply called an index. So copy, so an index fund sometimes is also known as an ETF. So at this point, let's do a midpoint summary. So we have understood. So in other words, right, we cannot buy an S&P 500 index. We cannot because the academic number. We can buy an S&P 500 index fund or S&P 500 ETF. Okay, you all get it? There are many sort of ETFs. Now, in case you have any question when you post, my colleague Hillary can still reply you. Okay, I'll reply you, right? So remember, I said you cannot buy S&P 500 index, but you can buy S&P 500 ETF or S&P 500. Now, but remember, not all ETFs are the same. Warren Buffett specifically talked about S&P 500. Let me give you some examples of ETF that is not so fantastic. Just give me a second. That's water, right? So if you look at this graph over here, it represents the Japan Nikkei 225. Now, if you look at this graph, it may seems to you that there isn't really a specific trend. It goes up all the way peak and then comes down, which also means that if you buy here and then you're stuck here, right, you're going to have a big problem. So we are not looking out for like ETFs where their trend is not predictable. We are looking for something that is predictable. Let me show you one example, right? Now, this is our own, very own local Straits Times Index. Again, 30 companies. Now, if you look at the share price, let's zoom in to the nitty-gritty. You may see this one comes up and come down. And if you refer back to the video, right, do you notice that Warren Buffett said we want to buy through thick, that means during good times, and through thin. So what is he trying to say? Okay, buying through thick, buying through thin, buying through thick, and then buying through thin. So why is it important for us to buy through thick, good times, and then bad time? Because for a very good ETF, in the long run, right, there is only one direction, which is up. So you look at this, there's quite a huge swing, you know, can you see it's thick all the way up, and then stops here, and then comes all the way down. Yeah, so if you try to time an ETF, most likely we're going to lose money. So it's important that we buy right through thick and thin, which is what Warren Buffett has recommended. Thick and thin, which is why if you draw one average line across out, right, for STI, with dividend reinvested, right, it's about 7.9% per year. But remember, this is based on data in the past. Yeah, in the future, it could go up higher, it could go up lower. But in your mind, just take note 7.9% with dividends reinvested, which is pretty good because this in number, right, had easily, I think, exceed any bank's interest, and of course can also beat the inflation. So the STI. And the interesting thing is, I think for the CPF investment scheme, you can also buy this STI ETF, right, via this fund manager called Nikko AM. I think if I'm not wrong, it's a Japanese fund manager. Yeah. So CPF scheme, you can also do this. I mean, it's better that you use CPF to buy something that's proven, right, versus some funny funds. Yeah. That cannot perform a better than STI ETF. And interestingly, years ago, I think this should be maybe close to 10 years already. POSB, right, was the first financial entity that started off this invest saver. So how it works is you can open an investment account, right, with a POSB. Actually, it's just a few clicks only, less than a minute. Yeah. Then what they do, right, is your bank account will be connected to an investment product. Let's say Nikko AM, let's say as an example, right? Nikko AM, and then this Nikko AM manages something to do with STI ETF. So what they do is every single month via Gyro, 100 Sing dollars will be pumped into this STI. But bear in mind that POSB charges a 1% transaction fee. So in other words, out of $100 that's transferred over or Gyro over, right, $1 becomes the POSB's profit. Yeah, but to me, it's still quite interesting because in the early days, there is no such thing. And then POSB is the one who takes this investment journey for us. But right now, very competitive. Right now, there are many, almost every bank can do this STI ETF. I'm not very sure about the transaction fee. Yeah. So in case, right, you are interested in getting something like, let's say 7.9, at least based on data in the past, and you want something locally because you can see, right? Then STI ETF may be something that you just want to explore. Yeah. And if you want to know more, so don't worry. At the end of my session, right, I'll share with you how you can get a guide and to kickstart this investment, right? Maybe in less than 10 minutes. Okay, yeah. So this is one idea for you to explore, right? But of course, the Warren Buffett didn't say a low-cost Straits Times Index fund. He talked about S&P 500. So why did he talk about S&P 500? Now, if you look at this line over here, this represents not STI. This represents S&P 500. So do you notice that it only has one direction? The direction is up. But in between, it goes through thick and thin, right? So let's look at the return. Now, with dividend reinvested. So do you realize that this is no longer 7.9%? Yeah, but this is 9.9. If you round up, it's almost 10%. Just to let you know, 10% of return per year is a huge amount because I think less than 95% of professionally managed funds could not beat 10%. So which also means that if any one of us, me and you, we are able to invest in S&P 500 ETF or low-cost index fund, right? We will be able to beat 95% or more professionally managed funds. So which is why sometimes if you go into the bank and then there's some relationship manager want to sell you some product, if you want to know whether is it good or not, very easy. You just ask them, right? For the past 10 years, what's their annualized gain? I don't think any fund, right, for the past 10 years is able to beat 10%. Unlikely. There may be, but unlikely. Yeah. So if it's unlikely, why do you have to give commission to the relationship manager when you can do this yourself, right? Later I'll talk about the setting up. So remember, here we're just talking about the potential return in the past. So now the question is, where do I get this 9.9% from? So what I did was I went to Warren Buffett's company's website called Berkshire Hathaway. He constantly pegged his own company's performance versus S&P 500. So for example, right, in 1965, Warren Buffett's company share price has risen by 49.5, and then S&P 500 has risen by 10%. So that's how you read this table. And then in 1966, when Warren Buffett's company price dropped by 3.4, bracket means negative, dropped by 3.4, S&P 500 dropped by 11.7. Wow, so if Berkshire win a lot, yeah, compared to S&P 500, if lose less. Also not bad, Berkshire is a good investment, right? But let's put Berkshire aside. Yeah, so at the end of this PDF file, right, Warren Buffett's company has compared the track record of S&P 500, which is 9.9%. Yeah, versus Warren Buffett's portfolio, which is 19.8. Yep. So this is where I get the result from 9.9. Usually every year there will be about 0.1 percentage point difference, but more or less your mind can round up to 10. So what does it mean? Yeah, it simply means that if we could turn back time and then invest in the long run, every year, right, we will have a 10%. Yeah. Now 10% is a lot. For example, in Singapore, the annual increment is about 3%. But imagine if the annual increment is not 3%, 10%. It's a lot, right? 10% of the previous year, 10% of the previous year. So it's going to be a lot. So other than this, how come Warren Buffett talks about buying through thick and thin? What is his logic? So let's look at the historical fact. Now, if you look at this graph over here, this is the highest point before the dot-com bubble burst. So that was in year 2000. Then subsequently, right, in 2 years later, the dot-com bubble burst. So the price has dropped by about 50%. Yeah, easy. I'll just round up 50%, right? So remember, you want to buy through thick and thin. That means when it's thin, after it dropped by 50%, you still continue to buy. Now, why is that so? Because based on S&P 500, historical past, every bear market is always followed by a bull market. In other words, the crisis or S&P 500 share price always, with zero exception, always recover. So in other words, we don't talk about recovering higher, just recovering back to the normal level, right? You notice that every 50% drop is almost followed by a 100% gain. 100% gain is a lot. It's like your salary double. So that's a lot, but you must buy through thick and thin. So this is one historical fact when the dot-com bubble burst. But let's look at the global financial crisis, which was in 2008, 2009. So you realize that in 2007, again, S&P 500 peaks. Yeah, peaks. And then, of course, Lehman Brothers. Yeah, then it dropped 2 years, and it took 2 years for it to drop. So it dropped really slowly. Yeah. This time round, how much has it dropped? Dropped by about 56%. Yeah, about 50%, right? 50%. So for those people who sell here, that's it. Yeah, their paper 50% loss becomes a real life loss. But Warren Buffett has reassured you, you buy through thick and thin. So as of this is April, right? Maybe I should have updated it. But it's still 2023. Yeah, you can see that here is about 4,100 points. Yeah, which is about 500%. If I look at the price yesterday, I think it's much higher than this. It's okay, right now, if I wrap it up, this one, a 50% drop, right? Let's compare to today, there's a 500% increase. So again, 500% is a lot, right? It's a lot, which is why Warren Buffett recommended a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. And if you look at the most recent one, for example, in 14th of February, this is Valentine's Day during the pandemic year, right? So you can see that the price dropped by 33%. But if you look at even months ago, 4,100 points, that's about 83% increase. Yeah. Now, why is that so? Yeah. Warren Buffett said there is no way you can bet against America and win. So what is he trying to say? Let me just go back to this diagram. Now, let me form a few conclusions. Yeah. Now, the first conclusion, do you notice that after every bear market, after every bear, which is this dip and drop over here, right, is always followed by a bull market? Do you notice? Yeah, because no crisis lasts forever. So let me just list down what can we learn, right? After every bear market, it's followed by a bull market. That means as long as you invest in long term, yeah, the money that you have that you invested, right, will always rise. Okay, this is a very reassuring fact. Now, the second thing, right, for every 50% drop during the bear market is always followed by 100% gain, right, in the bull market, as long as you recover. And it will recover because we are judging, right, on basis number one. Yeah, so it always recovers. So do you realize that it drops, it always recover? It drops, it always recover. Yeah, so that's one. But the third thing that's most interesting is sometimes the current bull market, yeah, is better than the previous bull. Yeah, so let me give an example. So if you look at let's say the global financial crisis, remember here, when it drops by about 50%, negative 50%, right? After that, the share market recover. Now, the moment it breaks even over here, it's actually plus 100%. And then it continue to go up, right, until today. So do you notice that the bull market today over here, which is the current one, right, it's higher than the previous bull. But because it's higher than the previous bull, that's why in the long term, the share price only has one direction, which is up. And remember, at least based on Warren Buffett's companies elected to shareholder, right, since 1965 until today, annualized gain is about 9.9%. That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah. So if you look at this diagram, it's just more compressed, same thing. It goes up. Now, but there are a few assumptions. The first assumption is we must assume that US will continue to prosper in the long run, no matter what happens. Let's say maybe 1 or 2 years down the road, Biden is replaced by somebody else, maybe Trump. We must assume that the economy will continue to prosper in the long run, no matter what happens. At least based on my research, and I travel all the way back to the Great Depression in 1929. Assumption number one is true. Yeah, that means I look back data close to 100 years. This is fact. Number two, we have to invest through thick and thin, which is consistently. And of course, we must live long enough to see the long-term growth. If you buy through thick and thin for 1 year and then after next year you pass away, this is a bit not so nice. But which also means that if let's say some of the audience that you're watching this, right, and then your age is maybe age 75 and above, maybe ETF is not something for you because your runway may become very short. So don't get angry for me saying this because for some things that I've read that the men, right, in Singapore, usually their average lifespan is about 82 years old. I think ladies is about 85. So if let's say I'm 75 years today, and then I'm going to die, right, on age 82. Now, if we know when are we going to die, still not that bad. We can still plan for it. The bad thing is we don't even know. Yeah, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's 1 month, we do not know. But let's assume it's 82. Then 75 to 82, I only have like 7 years left. To invest in S&P 500, I think it's a bit short. Okay, But if you are younger, right, even for me at age 52, I think still consider young. Yeah, we should seriously consider this. Okay, but why this, right? So let's look at the component of S&P 500. Now, even though here the date is dated on 13 August 2021, but the components hasn't changed much. So now, if I look at quarter of this circle, do you notice that a quarter of this circle predominantly are tech companies like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon? And if let's say, right, if let's say we buy individual stock, just buy one. Let's say we buy one stock of Apple, buy one stock of Microsoft, and then we continue down the line, until we buy all the 500 companies. And if we don't buy 500 companies, just this list, it will cost us $11,000, right? $700 in US. So that's a lot of capital. That's a lot of capital, right? Now, what if there is an alternative way for all of us to invest, right? But using only 100 Sing dollars per month. Not like a saving plan, like a gyro type, right? Isn't that better? Yeah. Isn't that nice? Later I'll share with you where do we get such an opportunity. $100. Yeah, recently, I saw one ad by UOB Bank. They're talking about 1,000. 1,000 is still a lot. 1,000 per month, 1 year is 12,000. So why don't we choose 100? Choose 1,000. Okay, huh? So this is about 25% component S&P 500. Just to give you a few, that roughly a quarter, right, are technology companies. Yeah. So assuming that money is not issue, every month you can cough out 100 Sing dollars. So how do you invest? Through the gyro method I shared with you. Huh? Now, before we talk about the gyro method, let me share with you the investment method that is behind this gyro method. And the method's name is called dollar cost averaging. So what is dollar cost averaging? Dollar cost averaging, that means is to invest a fixed amount of fixed amount of money. That is the first component, right? Over a fixed time interval. For example, every year you pump in $100. Every year you pump in $100. Every year you pump in $100 and so on. So a method like this is called dollar cost averaging. But of course, if let's say $100 is not issue, instead of 1 year, you can do it every month. Every month, you can even do it every 3 months. Yeah, or you do it every 6 months. Yeah, so the longer the month, it simply means that every single year, every single interval, right, you have a problem trying to cough out money. Yeah, so if you have a problem finding money, it's okay. Just extend the duration. So every month, every 3 months, every 6 months, or every year. Every year. Later, I'll share with you the monthly $100 plan. So just hang on that first. So many years ago, by the way, this is not recommendation. Now, many years ago, I came across this company called Dollar Dex. It used to be owned by Aviva. Right now, it's owned by Singlife. And my office is at Shenton House, right? It just happened. Yeah, the Singlife is just across the road. Yeah, I just need to take the traffic light and then it's just across the road. Yeah, so the reason why I need to talk about this so that you know it's not like a fly-by-night. Today you buy something, tomorrow you close. Yeah. So many years ago, there is a company called Dollar Dex. They have this autopilot, right? Every single month, $100 go to this S&P 500. So remember, it's Sing dollars, every single month. By the way, I'm not their affiliate. Yeah, so in other words, even if you open an account, I don't get paid. So it just happened that it's something that I use, me and my wife, we use for our 2 kids as well. So I'm just telling you. Yeah, but remember, there are many people right now is offering almost similar scheme. Okay, so $100, for POSB is 1%. Here, there's no fee. So initially, when they say it's no fee, I was thinking how they make money. So I realized that they make money from a fund manager. Yeah, no fee, right? Yeah, so I think if I'm not wrong, every month they deduct around the 12th of every month. Yeah, it's either 12 or 15. It's one of these dates, but somewhere right in the middle. Yeah, which means that let's say you open an account, you fill up some form, it connects this account to the bank. Yeah, every single month you are hands-free. You auto like gyro, right? Pull $100, put into S&P 500, $100, and then put into S&P 500. Yeah, and the specific fund that is within Dollar Dex, because there are thousands of funds. Now the specific fund is called Infinity US 500 Stock Index Fund. Now bear in mind that there's SGD and there's USD. The one that I use is SGD. It's easier for me to understand because if I transfer 100, I should see 100 being invested. If it's convert to USD, then there's this conversion is too complicated for me. And you can see here, yeah, it's a medium to long-term performance by modeling, right? After the S&P 500 index, correct? Yeah, via as a feeder fund in the Vanguard. Vanguard is one of the 3 largest ETF fund in the world. Yeah, so US 500 and so on. You can always Google this. You can just Google Dollar Dex Infinity Fund, right? The whole long list, and then you can go read about it. Here. So, but of course, if you don't want to spend the time and so on, Caden, is there some guide that you could pass it to us? Don't worry. At the end of the session, I'll share with you how you can get a guide, a copy guide, hard copy guide, so that if you're interested, you can just follow the steps. And the guide is provided by Dollar Dex. Okay. So STI and then this S&P 500 index fund. Now, but bearing in mind that Warren Buffett specifically about these 3 words, low cost, very low cost. Yeah. So there are many types of S&P 500 index fund, but so far, right, after I did some research, there are only 3 low cost S&P 500 index. So let me share with you all the 3. Now, if you want, you can take a screenshot of these 3. The first one is called VOO. VOO. V, right, is actually the first alphabet of the company, which is Vanguard. Vanguard. And there's this IVV. And then there's this SPLG. So every single one of these tickers, right, they are a very low cost S&P 500 index fund. Yeah, they are. It's like somebody selling chicken rice, but there's another store down the road that also sell chicken rice. Maybe the flavor is a bit different, maybe the price is a bit different, but they are still chicken rice. Okay, huh? Now, so how do we know whether are they a high cost or low cost, right? Now, just to let you know that when we talk about cost of an ETF or index fund, we use this term, right, called expense ratio. Expense ratio. Now, the expense ratio of these three, BOIV, SPLG, right, is 0.03%. Now, the lower the better. But there's another one, right, which is SPDR, SPY, which is also a S&P 500 index fund, but it's not a low-cost S&P 500 index fund because the expense ratio is 0.09%. So this is 3 times more than this, right? I mean, since we're going to buy the same thing anyway, why do we have to overpay? Yeah, so these three are the S&P 500 low-cost index fund. Now, which means that if we want to start our investing journey, yeah, to have the maybe a 10% plus minus, there are 2 things we can do. Number one is we can do it autopilot. You can use DollarDex or use any platform that you know. iFast they have, and then right now, I realize that Interactive Brokers also have. It's autopilot scheme. Yeah, and then or you do manually with any brokers. Yeah, my take is if I could travel back in time to the past when I'm maybe 80 years old, not 80 years old, what am I saying? 18 years old when I was in the JC, because in Singapore, 18 years old is the legal age for us to open an account. And then 18 years old, I don't think I have a lot of money, right? So I could use my pocket money, which is 100 bucks of my pocket money. I will do this. Yeah. So this is just my thought if I could travel back in time. Yeah. So I do not mind sharing with you that out of my entire portfolio, right, I have 2 ETFs. Out of these 3, I have a VOO and I have SPLG. Yeah. And the reason why this SPLG, right, is because per unit price, I think it's about 40 plus. So what I did was I used my 2 children, I have 2 kids. I use their pocket money, right, to buy this SPLG because their pocket money is not a lot. Yeah, and then their ang pao and all this. So whatever their net worth, I use it to buy SPLG. And then per unit price is 40. So it's so lower. Per unit price is cheaper to buy. VOO, I think right now is 400 plus. Also, if you want to do every month, I think it's quite intensive. Quite intensive, Yeah, so you can see this is a screenshot that I have SPLG as well as this VOO, right? But moving forward, are there any other things that are much superior, as in terms of general return that is higher than the S&P 500? So actually there are, but you know, unfortunately the time is too short for me to explain. So usually it takes about 3 hours for me to explain how we can perform this 10%. So which is why I put down this text. Now, what if there is a way of possibly achieving more than 20%, which beats the 10%, right? Now, using a 103-year-old proven formula. Now, I do not mind sharing with you the formula is simply called value investing. You can always Google. Yeah, it was founded in 1920s, which is why, you know, as compared to today, 2013, 1920s is about 103 years old. Now, using value investing with minimal capital. Minimal capital because if you buy one stock, right, in the US, you can buy 1 stock, 3 stock, 5 stocks, 6 stocks. Singapore, you have to buy 1 lot. And the best part is if we own a piece of business, the business works for us. And because of that, it requires practically, we need to monitor share price. So remember, there's a huge difference between trading and investing, right? So here we are talking about investing. Now, if you want to pursue a method that's been around for 103 years old, potentially outshine the 3 ETFs that I talked to you, right? Because to let you know, we are running an on-site masterclass. We do not run Zoom, right? Yeah, Zoom. So on-site masterclass. And it's going to take place on this 2 dates, which is the 16th of November, Thursday, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., like 22nd November. You can choose either one. These 2 are upload. So as I speak, I'll just need my colleague, Eugenia, to post the link. Yeah. So I'll just continue to speak, and then you will see in the chat box, you will see there's 2 links. Yeah. So as I speak, you can always register. So remember, we only have these 2 dates, and our classes are always full. The on-site class are always full, right? So now it's on-site. Remember, it's not a Zoom, So what will happen, right, is if you register today, and on 16th or 22nd, when you show up, at the registration counter in the office, we'll give you 2 sneaks copy of how you can kickstart your STI ETF journey using dollar cost averaging, as well as S&P 500. We'll print up for you. And then we'll pass it at the counter. So once you come in, okay, this is my name, Caden, or they pass you to copy. So that's the first thing that we're going to give it to you. Now, so this is the first thing. Then, of course, you attend the class. But my time is so precious, right? And we're talking about 3 hours. So why should I set aside 3 hours to listen, right? Of course, the key thing is there must be some returns for you. So what's the return? Is during the masterclass, is me. Yeah, I will share with you how you can generate 3 sources of passive income. Yeah, even if you know absolutely nothing about investing. Yeah, absolutely nothing. Serious. Yeah. And then you can invest with minimal capital. I already told you $100 you can really kickstart your journey. But the most interesting thing is this idea about a cash dispensing machine. Because Warren Buffett, which is the #1 investor of all times, he has a mechanism which will allow me and you to generate cash, either weekly cash or monthly cash, and over time is able to replace me and your existing salary. Yeah, usually capital appreciation you have to wait for many years. Dividends you have to wait for a couple of months. But using this method, you get cash instantly. Yeah, instantly. Yeah, which is why I require 3 hours to explain because it's a bit complex. Okay, So 3 hours, right? So remember, Eugenia, in case there are people chatting in the chat room, I just post the link another time. Yeah. So now there at the end of the session, once you finish, right, we have a redemption counter. You can always go to a bag, and then you can collect a hard copy of our book, which is worth $25, selling Amazon right now, but you don't have to pay. We give you the book. And then not only that, right, we also give you a Starbucks prepaid. In other words, the card is not empty, the card has money. And we have deposited $10 in a brand new card so they can have them. So in other words, at the end of the session, there is no lose on your part because not only you learn, right, which is the most important thing, you have something that's worth $35 if you add up together. Yeah. Yeah. And if you look at this lady, she's one of my mentors. Her name is called Miss Lauren Templeton. She's the founder of a fund, right, that follows after Sir John Templeton's method of investing. And she's very famous, right, in US. So I've written a book, and the book that we're going to give you at the end of the session has a foreword that's written by Lauren Templeton. And can you see what she say? I highly recommend Caden's book and his investment courses to anyone who are interested in getting started on investing. So I'm thankful to Mr. Lauren Templeton. Yeah. So now, then there's something interesting. We want to encourage you to bring your friend. It could be your son, it could be your husband, wife, spouse, anyone. Yeah, as long as you bring just one. Yeah, just one person or two if you want. Yeah, if you want, you bring one friend, your friend will also receive the book and a Starbucks gift card. Now, if you bring 2 friends, your friend will also receive a book and a Starbucks gift card. So in other words, they will have what you have. But why should you make an effort, right, to bring your friends? So as a small little so-called token of appreciation, if you happen to bring 1 friend or 2 friends, yeah, for you, because you make an effort to bring them, right, we will give you a $20 worth of NTC voucher, real voucher, right, plus $20 of a Golden Village TV, right, movie tickets, all on us. So right now you have a coffee to drink, you can read a book, you can go and watch a movie, you can go and buy grocery, all on us, on us, So remember, the link is at the chat. Please feel free to click on the link. A message will pop out, which goes to the place called Eventbrite, registration page. Then you just register. Just name, mobile phone, and email will do. That's all the 3. Just needs 3 information. So remember, when you show up, we will pass you the 2 hard copy of the guide. Yeah, during the 3 hours class, you learn these 3 very important concepts to beat inflation and to become wealthy over time. And then at the end of the session, as a small return of favor, right, for you to really sacrifice your 3 hours, invested 3 hours, we'll pass you the book and a Starbucks gift card. And of course, if you bring your friend will also have the book and a Starbucks gift card. And for you, right, you receive an additional $20 of NTC voucher as well as $20 of GV voucher. Yeah. So yeah, I'm done for my part. So again, please refer to the chat box. Yeah, and Eugenia may just post the 2 links one more time. And again, when the links pop up, click on it, choose whichever, and then one page will pops out. You can quickly register right now. Register right now, right? Or even after the session. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to hand over, right, my time back to Hillary, which is the host for this Saturday, and then she may spend a couple of minutes taking some Q&A so that as she's answering Q&A, you can also have sufficient time to register. Right? Yeah. So again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I wish all of you well. And of course, George, we're supposed to speak. He's fallen sick. I also hope that he could recover very quickly so that the next time, right, he's able to join us and introduce to you interesting ideas about a low cost S&P 500 index fund. So with that, thank you. I'm going to stop right now and I'm going to hand over my time right to Hillary. Thank you all. Have a wonderful Saturday.
Okay, thank you, Kaden, for the pre-recorded session. So I believe that today, for those who have come in early, you have learned 3 instruments where you can consider to park your excess money into, like, for example, the Singapore Saving Funds, the CPF presented by Jianda, and also the one that just ended earlier, Kaden, that shared about the S&P 500 index fund. So I hope that today's session has bring you massive value on how you can better manage or to consider where to invest your money to beat the inflation. But do take note that this is just a suggestion and idea, but not really a suggestion to really tell you that what to invest in. It's more like an educational session for every one of you. So as Kaden mentioned earlier, so maybe I'll spend about like maybe the next 5 minutes to hang around while you register, or maybe type in some questions that you have about the session. But unfortunately, Jianda has already left the session. So anything regarding to CPF, I may not be able to answer fully. So other than that, if you have any questions, you can type into the chat and I'll attend to it. But other than that, if there's nothing else, please feel free to leave the session. And do remember to join our masterclass if you are interested to know more on how you can better beat the inflation. So with that, I'll hang around for a moment. So maybe I'll turn on some music at the same time. Okay, thank you, Jasmine, and also thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Alice, Lina, Kim Yang. Yeah, I'm not a Christian, but also God bless to you all. Have a pleasant evening today. So, okay, so while I'm around, I'm not a very chatty person, but then if the room, thanks Mimi, Sissy, and also Kaden, but then the room, if no one is chatting, it sounds a bit like awkward lah. So I try to find something to talk about. Maybe earlier on, when I was sharing, Kaden mentioned about the lifestyle that we want, and then Jianda also focused on mentioning about the lifestyle that you consider. So maybe we can also share around here, like what would you like to do if money is not an issue while we are waiting here over at the website. Sorry, on the chat, on this Zoom meeting. While some of you are also typing in to register. So for me, when he showed about the snowy mountains, it looks very impressive. And also, earlier on, one of our speaker, George, who is supposed to share for today, but unfortunately fallen sick, is currently actually, previously he was staying in Singapore, but then when the COVID ended, then he moved back to Europe. And I last heard that he's currently staying in Switzerland, so which is very, very beautiful. So I also hope that he can also join us in our next session once he's recovered from his unwell. So I think that currently there is no question. So I think that all of you have gathered a lot of great information from this session. So which I think that it's a good job that every one of us has done a great job, because I think we have provided a lot of information that you know where to gather to find more and do your own due diligence. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so Eugenia has already posted again on the link. So see which timing is suitable for you so that you can join the masterclass, because the masterclass is really like an introduction, like what is really value investing. So for me, before I embark on this journey, I always thought that investing is something similar to what we know as trading. But actually trading is merely like you buy low and then you immediately sell high, that you gain some capital gain. But that one can be quite risky because we cannot control the stock market. We cannot say that when I buy low, I wanted to sell high. But sometimes when you buy low, the company is not performing well, the share price might go even lower, like Kaden earlier shared about between the bear market and also the bull market. We cannot control when it's the bear, when it's the bull. But then by investing is that we invest over the long term, so that when he showed earlier about the S&P 500, we see that if we can bear with the downturns, the bear market, after every bear, there will always be bull, as Kaden has mentioned earlier, which he shows some historical proof. However, do take note that the past performance does not really reflect the future performance. So investing has certain kind of risk. So it's only when we do our due diligence, do our homework to fully understand what it's really all about, only then when we invest our money, we can minimize the risk. And also we can determine how much of our risk appetite it is, because it will be unfair if we say that, oh, this is a good opportunity, please invest, because we do not know that what is your risk appetite or what is your personality, how much risk you are willing to undertake. Investing is also another kind. I've also read some books mention that investing is also a kind of like a risk management. So when you are able to manage your risk, protect your downside, then there is opportunity that you'll be able to see the upside. But that is what I read from the books. Okay. So I think if there is no further questions, so maybe we can end this session. And I hope that every one of you, the remaining 51 of you, have a very good session for today. And I wish you all have a pleasant weekend. So thank you, everyone.
Recording stopped.